A quick note before this video properly begins. As many regular viewers will already no doubt know, my channel has been demonetized by YouTube, and so this channel is now financially reliant upon you, the viewers. For those who would wish to help out and do their bit to help combat YouTube's attempts to silence and censor me, I am now both on Patreon and Subscribestar, and am asking for donations of $1 per month. But every little bit helps, and $1 per month is basically a soda pop per month to help combat YouTube's attempts to silence me. I am also, by the way, on alt tech platforms such as Odyssey, Bitchute, and Rumble, so you may want to subscribe to me there if you haven't already. For those curious, links will be left in the description below to all of this, as well as in a pinned comment. Thank you again for your time, thanks to those who have already donated, and with that said, let's get to the video itself. Hello everyone, Ace here, and today, well, I'm just going to have to go ahead and say it. Amazon Sauron is the Eminem of Tolkien's Middle-earth. At least that is the case if you view Amazon's Rings of Power through the far leftist lens that the creators clearly utilized. Now, for the younger members of my audience who don't know who I am talking about, Eminem was, or rather is, a rapper who peaked all the way back in the 2000s, and can be best described as what you'd get if Sean King were a little bit more honest about himself. As far as why I am bringing up Eminem and comparing him to Sauron, well, this is because of the casting decision for Sauron in Amazon's new Rings of Power, which was revealed by this trailer quite recently, which is already getting ratioed for a whole number of reasons. A good number of those reasons being casting decisions that are clearly made in the name of woke ideology, meaning that the people that are making Rings of Power are far leftists, and thus are less interested in faithfully recreating Tolkien's world, as they are forcefully inserting their own ideology onto Middle-earth, specifically against the consent of the fandom. So basically, the marketing for Rings of Power is quickly turning into a disaster piece. But I believe now is a good time to move on and start digging a little bit deeper into far leftist ideology, as this will be necessary to further explain why the comparisons made between Sauron and Eminem aren't just, shall we say, skin deep. And keep in mind, I'm saying that this comparison is only really valid through a far leftist lens, i.e. the lens of the people who wrote this show. I say this in advance because we're now going to be moving on to the far leftist interpretation of orcs. Now, regular viewers already know exactly where this is heading, but rather than spoil it myself, here's a segment from the far leftist channel Extra Credits, who in an old video was oh so kind to explain how the far left perceives orcs.
If you paid attention to the game's discourse on the internet during 2019 and 2020, you might have noticed a reoccurring argument about some species from fantasy media, specifically orcs. Much of the recent conversation on orcs points out that characterizing a whole species in your game as ugly, warlike, and malevolent might be harmful to real-world groups regularly mischaracterized as ugly, warlike, and malevolent.
So yes, if you were in fact watching this particular video rather than just listening to it, the particular image that you are currently being exposed to should fill you with absolute disgust. I know it certainly fills me with disgust, and I also expect that any sane, rational individual would also look upon this with disgust as well, and for very obvious reasons. Because this is not just a commentary on how the far left views orcs, as this comparison goes both ways. It is also a commentary on how the far left views those that they compare to orcs. Now, to be fair, while Extra Credits did make this comparison, it wasn't exactly the main focus of their video, although they pretty much took it as an assumption that everyone would agree with this position, which, to be honest, in my opinion, makes it even worse, because they think it's such a sound argument that no one could ever make a solid counter to it. But some of you may now be skeptical and think that this is just one cherry-picked example and not representative of the far left. And to those people, I would present to you this particular article from Wizards of the Coast, from that time that they had to change the definition of orcs, specifically because a bunch of rich white progressives kept getting offended on other people's behalf over it. But the main thing to keep in mind is that the far leftist position is that they unironically think that black people are all orcs. And while you keep this in mind, also take note of the fact that the far leftist ideology fundamentally argues that everything is not not only political but also propaganda. If you want a good source on this, I would recommend reading Empire, which covers the Marxist theory of empire, and is written by Marxists themselves. But to get back to the subject of comparing Sauron and Eminem, I want you to consider not only the physical similarities between the two individuals, as depicted in Amazon's Rings of Power, but also consider what the far left think of orcs, and how Sauron is a big figure amongst the orcs of Mordor. Also, of course, consider that the far left want you to interpret everything through a political lens, and thus the casting decision behind Sauron as a character must be to push some sort of message. With all of this in mind, if you were to view the show through the far leftist lens of those who created Rings of Power, it would appear that their depiction of Sauron as a character is meant to be a scathing critique of Eminem's entire career. Now, sarcasm and jokes aside, I once again condemn this interpretation of the show. All I am doing here is merely pointing out how utterly ridiculous wokeism truly is. That said, the sad part is that technically, if you were to interpret this show through the far leftist lens, that would actually be a valid interpretation as far as the ideology of social justice is concerned. Moving on from that, there is of course still more to criticize from the show as well, aside from the hilariously bad casting, of which once again Sauron is but one example. The biggest problem with the trailer of Rings of Power is that it shows this Tolkien-inspired show to be generic. And if there are two words that should never ever appear in the same sentence, they are Tolkien and generic. I legitimately lost count of the sheer number of generic quote-unquote epic lines from this trailer, as well as scenes that pretty much rip off plenty of other stuff as well. It would appear that I'm not the only one that has noticed this, and as a result the comments have been utterly flooded with people memeing the hell out of this trailer. In fact, allow me to read to you some of the top comments at the time of this video. When Sauron started singing, quote, "If you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it," unquote, I got goosebumps. Bezos' themes are truly timeless. When Balrog set himself on fire and said it's not about the money, it's about sending a message, that really put a smile on my face. That part where Frodo and Sam trudged valiantly into Mordor, climbed onto the top of Mount Brokeback, and consummated their special relationship with Frodo placing the One Ring on Sam's finger was stunning and brave, gave me literal goosebumps. When Elrond said, quote, "I'll try," unquote, after Galadriel told him to use the Force to lift his X-Wing out of a swamp, and she responded with, quote, "Do or do not, there is no try," unquote, I got chills. I love it when Sauron asked the Balrog calmly if he put his name in the Goblet of Fire. Such a well-written and emotional scene. I've got years in my eyes. When all the hobbits came together and danced to, quote, "All the Single Ladies," unquote, tears literally filled my eyes. Such beautiful writing. The part where the orcs said, quote, "We are women, hear us roar," unquote, literally sent chills down my spine. So yes, the comments are absolutely tearing this particular trailer apart, and for reasons that I trust I have made obvious now. Now for those curious, I will of course be leaving a link to the trailer in the description below, so you can check it out if you should so desire. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.